Microfibers is a product of fast fashion. Fast fashion, as you know, encourages you to buy cheaper garments, get rid of them every 3 months, get new ones. Well, to be able to get to those price points and that type of speed in the supply chain, these companies actually use textiles made from synthetic yarns, which in turn is made from oil. So essentially, we call them microfibers, but they are plastic. So even though this is not our industry's problem, this is clearly the problem of fabric manufacturers, yarn manufacturers, fast fashion, we found ourselves in a situation to do something about it. So we developed a filter, it took 2 years, which actually channels all the water in the washing machine it forces it through this filter, which captures all the microfibers that are being released. This is important because almost all the microfibers, other than the ones in the manufacturing process of the garment, are released into the environment when you wash your clothes in the washing machine. Each single load releases more than 1 million microfibers into the oceans. And of course, people don't see this again, so they don't feel the magnitude of the problem. But municipalities and governments are not equipped to filter this. And so it just freely runs into our waterways and oceans.
And then for the life on the seabed, we find that plastic and those microfibers all over the animals and actually inside them as well. Plastic being eaten by fish and so on, which we're eating, it's not just in the intestinal tracts. No, that plastic is getting somehow through the gut wall into the muscles and the organs of the fish, which indicates that it's probably doing the same to us. And at the moment, we've seen no technology that can really deal with microplastics. And we haven't even got a technology that can measure nanoplastics in the environment. And the other issue with that is any technology which does collect the microplastic will also collect the microscopic marine life that's living in the ocean, in the base of the ocean food web. And not only that, produces half the oxygen that you're all breathing in this room right now. I'm Science Director of RevOcean, which is a new foundation aimed at really tackling some of these horrendous problems we're facing. We're building the world's largest multi-purpose research ship. So we'll launch the vessel in 2021, and it will then be made available to scientists globally, completely free to use, including all the equipment on board to carry out research which is directly relevant to some of the worst problems that the ocean is facing. So that's plastic pollution, climate change, and issues around fishing. Not only are we bringing scientists on board, but we'll also be opening the ship to artists, writers, and so on, because we recognise that communication of these issues is really critical in generating the change we need to see in our relationship with the ocean. We had a very famous steampunk writer on an expedition with us, and he'd wanted to dive in a submarine since the age of 3, and we gave him that experience, and he wrote about it. And when I read this piece, it really had a huge impact on me, because he was putting into words things which I had never thought of as a scientist, but instantly I thought, yeah, he's got it absolutely right. And it added a new dimension for me of a way in which to communicate about the ocean.
TBA21 Academy is an organization that was founded in 2011 by Francesca Thyssen-Bornemisza and myself, and was really an artistic project to look at the ocean through the lens of art and explore the oceans and sense the oceans, led by artists and artistic research. And so another thing that we work with is, in this collaborative space, is the agency that society installs in artists and the trust that society installs in artists. I have never met another group of people that is able to bring as many diverse people around the table and start a conversation. And it's only possible because we trust artists to hold this conversation and not abuse this conversation. This is an image of Claudia Comte, who's a young Swiss sculptor, and she was really interested in basing the new sculptures that she's going to create on corals, on marine life, on on the ocean. That was her proposition, and so we facilitated her to do a residency program at the Alligator Head Marine Lab in Jamaica, and she's been working with members of the community to create these sculptures that you see here. They will be presented next year in Madrid, but with a technologist in residence who was looking at transforming the sargassum seaweed, which is currently a pest all over the Caribbean, suffocating reefs, destroying tourism industry, stinking like hell on the beaches. They had these lunches, continuous lunches, and we're talking about this, and they came up with the question, could it be possible to install some of her iconic sculptures on the seabed and create an artificial reef and use these structures for coral to trigger coral regrowth quicker. And here they are. They're installed now at the bottom of the sea. We're going to start planting corals on them from the coral nursery to the sculptures in November. The thing here is that they're not flat, they're not polished, they have surface so that the corals can actually latch onto something and grow.
In the Biennale itself, I got a presentation of a kind of like a fish market of sort of very tactile glass creatures, eels and jellyfish and sort of non-specific species, but all sort of all kind of familiar beings, which I kind of want to be alive in the sense that they're completely, utterly still, but quite vital in their sort of lusciousness. But their sort of stillness makes that sort of conflict between them being living and not living. I grew up on the island of Mull on the west coast of Scotland, and from a young age, I used to fish the eels off the shore. These same eels that are supposed to go to the Sargasso Sea, and I have noticed year after year, very rapidly their decline. From when in the early 80s, you would pull up a rock, and under any rock you would find an eel, to them sort of completely disappearing, to like signs of sort of, I've been seeing a few elvers under the rocks recently, which I sort of take as some sign of encouragement, but I've sort of witnessed that very personally and very, I'm so connected with that part of the world and with the marine environment. So I think the whole issue is just redolent throughout my work in a very sort of direct sense. I mean, my installation is made out of like repurposed old plastic containers, which we found lying around. And anytime I'm walking around on Mull, I'm always collecting the old bits of plastic for these pieces.